Mr. Director, I've listened from my office to your testimony today. Tell me who had the authority to call out the National Guard on January 6th?
My understanding is that the decisions to call out the National Guard, in one sense, are the responsibility of the Secretary of Defense, but in another sense, have to be.
Mr. Director, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think we can agree that the FBI had credible information that there was likely to be violence on January 6th. Can we agree on that?
Well, I don't know that we had assessed its credibility. We certainly had information that was concerning about the potential for violence in connection with the January 6th events. And as we discussed here this morning, one piece of information that was most specific that I'm aware of was passed, quite quickly.
Well, based on that information, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we just keep nibbling at the edges and dancing around the issue. And I understand. I'm not asking you to throw anybody under the bus, Chris. I get it. But we need to find out what happened. Now, if you were king for a day, based on the information that you had, maybe not at the time, but later on, would you have called out the FBI? I mean, the National Guard?
You know, Senator, as you said, I really want to be careful not to be armchair quarterbacking others. I think the National Guard, we have seen, can play a very important role in crowd control.
Excuse me for interrupting. Yeah. Boy, I sure, I'm not trying to be rude, but my time's limited. Well, who made the call not to, based on your information, who made the call not to call out the FBI, whether they should have or shouldn't?
Not to call the FBI?
I'm sorry, I'm tired. The National Guard.
Well, I would defer to others who are more involved in that discussion, but from what I have heard, or what I have read, my understanding is that at one stage of the process, the local government was of the view that it did not need the National Guard's assistance.
Who do you mean by the local government? The mayor?
Yes.
So the mayor didn't call out the National Guard?
At the beginning.
What do you mean by the beginning?
Well, in the day or two leading up to the 6th. Okay. Then as to exactly how it played out on the 6th itself,
I understand
I'm not as sure about.
I mean, clearly our people were overrun by the nut jobs. So we're making progress here, okay? So the mayor or the city government decided not to call out the FBI, the National Guard ahead of time. What about the House Sergeant at Arms?
I don't know what role the House Sergeant at Arms played with respect to the National Guard.
Okay. How about the Senate Sergeant?
Same answer.
Okay. How about the Capitol Police, the Chief of Capitol Police? Did the Chief of Capitol Police make the call not to call out the National Guard?
I don't know the answer to that. My understanding is that the law enforcement officials here with responsibility over the Capitol, that there were differing views about whether or not the National Guard was appropriate and when at what level, but all I really know on that is what same thing you've seen, in the press coverage of the events.
Okay. That's enough on that. I listened to your comments about diversity, and I thank you for your good work there. I think any fair-minded person has to conclude that that diversity is a strength, not a weakness. But this subject comes up a lot, and I think it's going to come up a lot again. And that's not a criticism. That's just an observation. Thank you. Do you believe that the FBI is a systemically racist institution?
No. Now, having said that, I do believe the FBI needs to be more diverse and more inclusive than it is, and that we need to work a lot harder at that, and we're trying to work a lot harder on that.
Do you believe that the FBI is a systemic systemically sexist or misogynistic institution?
Again, that's not the way I would describe the FBI that I know and see every day. But again, it's a place where we need to be more diverse and inclusive, and we need to work harder at that. And we are working hard at that, and we've got progress that we still need to make to at least to be satisfactory by my standards.
Okay. Fair enough. Mr. Director, have you ever been to Hong Kong?
No.
Wonderful place, wonderful people. The Chinese Communist Party is destroying it. If Congress passed a bill and said to the good people of Hong Kong who yearn for freedom, come to America. We're going to follow our friends in Britain, say, come here. You want to get out from under the thumb of the Communist Party, come to America. We welcome you. Do you think the FBI and law enforcement has the ability to screen for spies? One of the criticisms of the proposition I just stated is, well, we would be letting in spies. Do you think, based on your knowledge of security, that we could catch most of the spies? Well,
I yield to no one in my faith and confidence in the great work of the men and women of the FBI, but I will tell you that the Chinese counterintelligence threat is the greatest threat, certainly the greatest counterintelligence threat that we face as a country.
Right.
And the sheer number of what we would refer to as non-traditional collectors working on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party is something that is a massive resource challenge for the FBI.
That was probably an unfair question. I'm not asking you to guarantee anything. In the few seconds I have left, and begging the indulgence of our esteemed chairman, who's doing a much better job than Durbin, by the way. Oh, he's back. The Horowitz report. Can you tell me how many people you have referred for prosecution at the FBI as a result of the Horowitz report?
Well, for prosecution or for discipline?
For prosecution first. Just give me numbers, because I don't want to abuse my time.
Well, you know, the prosecution issue related to anything to do with the Horowitz report is in the hands of Inspector.
I get it. How many have you fired?
So most of the people involved in the Horowitz report are former employees. Of the ones who are current, every single one of them, even if mentioned only in passing, has been referred to our Office of Professional Responsibility, which is our disciplinary arm. Now that piece, and this is important, that piece of it, because we're cooperating fully with Mr. Durham's investigation, at his request, we had slowed that process down to allow his criminal investigation to proceed. So at the moment, that process is still underway in order to make sure that we're being appropriately sensitive to the criminal investigation.
Okay. So you've had to hold up as a result of the criminal investigation. Right. I'm sorry I went over, Mr. Chairman. And I'm sure glad you're here. Booker was just screwing everything up.
Senator Padilla, and I'm sure you'll do a better job than the previous questioner.